Hello, welcome to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And let's just kind of get into it. I'm going to talk about relationships. And in a weird way, this wasn't exactly the video I wanted to create, but maybe I'll just smash them together. I like to play around with astrology, and I feel like I get intuitive insight about astrology all the time at random times. And whatever interests and subjects that I'm interested in, I feel like I get this intuitive download, this information. And it really all started out with understanding the movements of the planets and trying to understand the behavior of different star signs and how a lot of people can't really fully understand their astrology chart, their star signs, and one of the biggest reasons is actually really simple. People don't realize the movements of the planets. So each sign has a planet or a couple planets that go with it to add to the odd behavior. And they move at different speeds. And so depending upon which sign it is, and the planets involved will kind of match, you'll be able to chart the behavior, the emotional patterns, the mental patterns, and even the actions of an individual. And some of the signs like Scorpio, Aquarius, and Pisces have 2 planets. Those were in different signs probably when your sun and moon were in those signs. And so you have to, when you're looking at behavior, we're getting 3 signs that have 2 sides to themselves. And so if you know anything about Scorpio, they're notorious for their 2 different sides, kind of a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, this upfront in your face, and then the passive, shy, introspective, contemplative, or I'd say normalized. So if you've been in relationship with Scorpios or have friends with them, you might have the privilege of seeing these 2 different sides. But it's also more simple than that. We all have a sun, we all have a moon. And the moon is kind of who you are when you're alone in your downtime. The sun is who you are out in public and, what other people meet. To complicate it more, you have a rising sign and a midheaven that act very much like your moon sign, that dictate the way your body looks, and your overall personality and your life lessons and how the world will see you. And so it's not so much polarized as think of it as harmonies. Think of them as yin-yang parts coming together to make a whole. And so when you're playing with magic and the occult, which, that's what I do, that's what I'm interested in, you get to this point where you're looking at relationships. You're looking at how 2 things relate together, how they don't relate, how the forces are ebbing. You're trying to be an alchemist. You're trying to harmonize things. And really, that's all that we do. We're in relationship with the earth. We're in relationship with our body. We're in relationship with our mind. We're in relationship with our family members and friends. So if you start giving more value to relationship dynamics, you can go very far in life just by paying attention and understanding the energies or the ebb and flow of yourself in relation to others, yourself in relation to the sun and the seasons, or yourself in relationship to the moon. So you don't actually have to be a witch or a wizard or a mystic or a psychic, but you can just, say, okay, these forces externally that create the seasons affect me. Temperature affects me, or I am a part of the universe. Therefore, when there's movement in the universe, I am not separate from that, but I move with it as well. So, this is kind of the introduction to relationships and personal relationships. I would say it's good to sit back and philosophize. Once you've gained a basic understanding of astrology and you've done some field work, observing friends, family, and coworkers, interacting with each other in different dynamics, you can gain a real insight into how the stars, the planets, and we as individuals are relating, how they're working out, how they're not seeing eye to eye, how they attract, how they repel. And so pretty soon you find out the 7 hermetic laws put up by the 3 initiates is already encapsulated in astrology. You don't really have to look too far or get too mystical to see it all. So let's just kind of start off with the confusion. So we all come with baggage. We all come with programming from our environment, from our family, our friends, our community, and the generation that we grew up in. The world is pushing certain ideas on their youth, on the children. If you grew up in a toxic family environment, or you had a negative school experience, or in your community, maybe religion was a big deal. We get influenced and we're spoon-fed toxic information. And if you haven't done the inner work, this toxic stuff that you've digested, with all the loves and kisses and well-wishing and love bombing and everything that they did for you or didn't do for you, left you like Swiss cheese, with holes, with voids to fill, which become your needs, which make you over. So if you haven't done any inner work, if you haven't done any shadow work, looked at yourself, done some self-reflection, it's basically, you could sum it up as just baggage. I think a lot of people, one of the big deals, one of the big problems is we, as a culture, overthink every field, and we make too big of a deal out of small things, and it actually makes doing the inner work, which is really letting go, harder. Doing the inner work is also facing the reality that you're not going to get certain things. So you have to learn to put your inner victim in check, your martyr, your whiner, your complainer. You have to learn to put that in check. We need some sobriety. We need some grounding. And then, so that would be called, all under the umbrella of acceptance, okay? Detachment could be the surrendering, the letting go, seeing through your own bullshit narrative that was co-authored by everyone around you until you knew better and you decided to now write the book of you, yourself, and how your future is going to go. That would be the inner work, okay? So I was watching the other day and someone was saying Capricorn is the true sign of psychics. And I'm like, as an astrologer and out in the field doing the work, which is interviewing people of different signs and also observing them in their environments, family, friends, and coworkers, water signs are very psychic, period. Hands down. So one sign can't be more psychic than the other. Air signs are quite the psychics. So every sign is psychic, So then we start moving kind of into relationships. who's the best match for so-and-so and who's the best match for so-and-so. Today, I've determined all the signs suck. All the signs are horrible matches for me. You know, what was I thinking? Do I even want to be in relationships? And what is the point? Is it an outdated thing to want to be in a long-term relationship or even hang out with someone for over an hour? You know, like at this point in my life, I like a lot of solitude and space, you know, because I feel like I'm connecting to the universe. So my relationship right now is with the universe, you know, something that should never be separated. It should never have been separated, you know, the relationship with yourself and the greater good, you can call that the universe. Those relationships are really important. And that would be putting yourself back into balance, finding out who you are. Once you've been put back into balance, if you've been put out of balance, then you probably start expressing the true nature of your sign. Okay? So we think, oh, I'm my sun sign. I'm so proud of my sun sign. Well, guess what? Your whole chart is trying to help you manifest, bring forth your sun sign. So the reality of it is you're not doing the greatest job being your sun sign. You're probably doing a better job being your moon sign, which is a place of habits, past lives, where you go to retreat, and is kind of like your other self. So to just get an opinion and judge someone on their sun sign, you're not getting the whole picture. So I'm just going to smash it together. I've decided because it's just too awesome. So what's up with people who are ruled by the moon? Now, by the way, if you didn't know, you have a chart ruler that rules your whole entire chart, that influences and colors all your planets, all your signs, everything. And that is the sign that rules your ascent or your first house. So let's say you had a Cancer rising. The moon is going to influence you and your whole life, your personality, everything. So it's like someone just titled the book of your life, you know? So the whole story still has to fit within that title, within that concept, within that fairy tale. All sorts of things can happen, but still has to be in that fairy tale. Whatever it is, it's all under that light. The moon changes signs every 20, you know, has cycled about once a month through the whole zodiac. So we're going to get a lot of changeability. So chances are your experience of moon ruled people is you're only getting a thin slice of who they are. Probably not a good idea to make a judgment so fast. Sun ruled people, they go through the whole wheel, the whole zodiac once a year. So they're moving slower, but there's changeability there too. And because the sun and the moon are in such relationships, both of them have kind of changeable natures, and both of them on one level don't change. Moon people are always moon people or moody. And with that comes that changeability. And it's pretty much limited to their moods, but that colors their behavior, that colors their thinking. Sun-ruled people are always going to be in a dynamic relationship with the moon, especially for eclipse season. And the equinox and the solstice really affect sun people. Okay, so we thought the moon people had a lot of changeability. The sun people have a lot of changeability. What doesn't change is pretty much their kind of solar nature. That stays a constant, but their moods and their moods change, their behavior changes. So they're kind of unstabilized for being such a stable, you know, rulership. There's definitely some instability going on there behind the scenes. And it's a little bit of an enigma to them because the moon is exerting these forces upon them, this emotional nature, which isn't exactly who they feel or who they think themselves to be and who they are. So it's an uncomfortable displacement going on when the moon exerts its force upon the sun because they're in relationship. So we're getting that these planets are orbiting around the zodiac or the ecliptic, and we're not getting a clear picture of an individual so fast. So it would probably be a good idea to slow down, pace yourself, and be very observant and aware to observe someone under a certain sign out in the field, you know. Now let's move on to people with the Mercury energy. Mercury pretty much goes through the whole zodiac once a year. It's usually a little bit shy of it, and it has long retrograde periods. You might do 2 or 3 or 4 within a year. And so we get this back and forth nature going on. So we thought these signs that only had one planet were going to be easier to understand. But turns out they speed around the wheel much faster. And Mercury does retrogrades. And so we get this dualistic nature, this unpredictability going on with Mercury ruled people. The moon goes void of course. Anytime it's between two signs, anything goes. It's chaotic. You know, besides its phases of the moon. And so what we thought were simpler signs to understand, like Gemini, Cancer, and Leo, there's an unstabilized, erratic thing going on with them. You know, I'd say Mars is pretty easy, but its nature is temperamental, aggressive, and it, you know, and you know, you'd think Venus is pretty easy as well. So moving on, let's go to these other planets. So we found out that Scorpio's old ruler was Mars and its new ruler Pluto, when in reality Scorpio rules both planets. So honestly, within Aries is a Scorpio force. And if you've ever experienced an Aries freeze you out, where do they get that from? Could it have been under that influence of Scorpio? So Aries has a hidden influencer, the Scorpio energy, the Plutonic energy. But anyways, so Scorpio has two sides, okay? And it actually overrules the Aries Mars energy. And so we get this hot, fiery nature. We get this active, aggressive, assertive, goal-oriented, driven, I'd say passionate nature. But then it has this Pluto. And I start viewing Pluto as it's in between two different solar systems. It just, you know, it's on the outer limits. So we get literally the show, The Outer Limits, and the Twilight Zone, Paranormal Activity. It's that outer edge of consciousness, it's the limit. And so what do? Is push the limits inside themselves, and they kind of have a perspective that's pretty deep. So, and then on that farthest, outest edge of our solar system, you would think as they look out farther, they might start to feel vibes. They might start to feel influences from the next celestial body, the next nearest star, the next nearest galaxy, the next nearest other solar system. And so it's like they truly are at the edge. So people who are like shamans, wizards, they're kind of like an outcast, but they're living on the farthest edge where the community is, and they kind of can look in from an outside perspective and see things from a different point of view. But because they're on that outer edge, behind them or next to them is the wild unknown. So this is where witches, wizards, and shamans hang out, on the farthest outer edge of civilization, Right. So I'd like to think of like a little village, there's a little bit of farmland, then there's some grove, and then there starts to be forest, and then the foot of the mountain. That's where they are. Kind of in this in between where there might be rumors of haunted forests, or don't go up that mountain, that's where the dragon lives. And so this kind of far out, remote is where the Plutonic energy lives. The Mars energy is in the town, doing active farming, working, associating, being social. And so there's definitely two sides to the Scorpion energy, but they're not the only one. Okay? So with our moon people, it was still one personality going through many different changes and moods, but it's still expressed as one. With these signs that have two planets, it's two personalities working together as one. Like one body, but it's like two different goals, two different directions, two different sets of rules. And so they're juggling two. And that's pretty dynamic. So we have the inner ruling planets and the outer ruling planets. These outer ruling planets rule generations because they move so slow. They could be, for one generation or a couple generations, they could be within one sign. Because they're anywhere from like 14 years to 36 years to more. So, and then also to make it all the way around, the wheel could take decades, where we saw the sun and moon pretty much, and Mercury move through that pretty fast. And Mars and Venus move through that pretty fast, even Jupiter. But the planets past Saturn, the ring passed not, the guardian on the mount, all the occult superstition. These outer planets, people who have them, they kind of have a different perspective on life. And not everything is in town. Not everything is with the community. There's this whole other mission. These are the people we might call star seeds. They'll have a heavy influence of Pluto, Uranus, and Neptunian energy. They're going to have gifts. They're going to be geniuses in some aspect. Whether it gets expressed or not, we don't know. So you'll have to look to your inner ruling planet to see your nature. So where is your Mars, Scorpio? Because that's a big deal. And that might be what people see. Where is your Pluto? So it gets complicated pretty fast. So we just can't say all Scorpios are bad or all Aquarians are bad. Pretty much, I'd say Aquarius, Scorpio, and Pisces gets a bad rap, and it's because other people don't go to the outer edges. Okay, and what's really interesting is these outer planets really don't relate to each other very well. You can't simplify them like one of my astrology teachers said, and said Pluto is basically like Cancers just with armor. That was way too simplified. Because no, they're not. Look at the planet. Look what they're dealing with. They're on the outer limits. They're in the twilight zone. Cancer isn't going there. Cancer can hardly handle their own psychology. You know, their moods, their emotions, their empathy. They're not doing what a Scorpio is doing. Scorpio has no lunar power. It's not in Scorpio's nature. They don't have feminine energy. That's the whole problem with it. It's Pluto, which isn't feminine, and it's Mars. Let's go over to Aquarius. You know, Aquarians have Saturn, which is the kind of like law enforcing restrictive energy. It rules over time, okay? And then it has the Aquarius ruling planet of Uranus, which is a sky god. And it's also out there. It's eccentric and erratic, kind of unpredictable, and it's a storm god, lightning god. But it's way out there. And it's on a different trajectory. And anything past Saturn is kind of out of the village, outside of town. This is another outsider. This is another alien. What is an alien but a foreigner in your land? Okay, so so we get the outsider, we get a foreigner, so these people who have these outer ruling planets with their personality, and then he has Saturn energy, which is business, which is teacher, which is guide, which is the one who knows, which is the one who can manifest and generate. So really what we see a lot with the Aquarians, their ability to manifest money and get what they want and be hard and tough, is the Saturn energy. What we don't really understand fully and get to know is the Uranus energy. It's cold, it's distant, you know, and so people say emotional, but I would almost just say reactive. So there's a big difference between emotions and reactive. Being a human, being made mostly of water, and how humans behave and treat each other, which is really actually horrible, you're gonna get reactions from these three signs. And then you'll say, oh, you're being emotional. No, you guys are being prehistoric. People who have the Scorpio, Aquarius, and Pisces energy, you could say are more evolved or have had a privilege of experiencing things outside the mundane human realm. And so their senses are way more acute. They grasp way more knowledge. So when you hurt them, you're hurting them so much more because they're getting so much out of the experiences. So all three need to retreat. All three need to regenerate and take a break from stupid people and lower consciousness that humans are really into because they're trapped on their planet with nothing really better to do but work and cause drama and procreate. So we get the inventor, we get the scientist, and we get like a genius energy coming in with the Aquarius energy. We get architects, we get photographers, Once again, we get this outside perspective, but it's not a negative planet, Uranus itself. And so we kind of get optimism, excitement, and eccentric and bizarre. And I guess I'd have to be one to understand it, but I would assume they have knowledge of life after death, immortality, because you're either in time or you're out of time. So they have knowledge of space, time, and time, space, and when they really master being in the moment, when they master the power of time and timelessness, being here in the now, which is kind of what the gurus tell you, be here now. When they really take that to heart and are able to do that, things align, and then they become an awakener. So these outer ruling planets have the energy that the humans need. And it's built into their aura, it's built into their energy pattern. So just being around them, you're going to wake up on some level. So Scorpio will wake up your Kundalini. Aquarius will kind of wake up your Kundalini as well, more like an enlightenment. Wake up to the reality that life is so much bigger than you. Then we get Pisces with that Neptunian energy. It's going to slowly dissolve your boundaries. It's going to teach you that life is a dream. So what's really popular in all this new age science is law of attraction, manifestation, visualization. This is all Pisces energy. Pisces basically teaches you there is no limits to your mind. So much so, it's like a dream. If you're willing to dream it, it will happen. So we get what's called magic. At the outer limits of technology, you can do anything. It's just a matter of using your genius. Forge, the X-Men, has the ability, whatever he can imagine, he can build. That is Pisces energy, okay? So, but people don't fully understand it, and then they think religion, they think wishful thinking, they think miracles. When you don't understand it, but when you understand it, you see all the parts and pieces. So we could go on, but we can't really go on and on. Baby steps. But basically, we get spiritual enlightenment. So what's really we think is new information and very Aquarius is still very Pisces. It's moving through different dimensions, different densities, different realities, different time